In a small studio, tucked away in a cozy corner of the city, Mark sat in front of a microphone. His headphones rested comfortably on his ears, and the sound of his voice filled the quiet space. The studio was simple. Just a few microphones, a desk, and some soundproof walls. But inside this room, Mark was about to make something big. Mark had always been a storyteller. As a child, he loved reading books, watching documentaries, and listening to people's stories. His grandmother used to tell him tales of their family's history, and he would hang on to every word, imagining the characters and places in his mind. When he grew older, he realized that his love for stories wasn't just a hobby. It was his passion. Mark had always wanted to share stories, but writing wasn't his strength. He loved speaking and connecting with people through his voice. One day, while listening to a podcast about technology, it clicked. Why not create my own podcast, he thought. A podcast where I can talk about ideas, share stories, and connect with people from all around the world. And so, Mark's podcast was born. In the beginning, it wasn't easy. Mark had no experience in broadcasting. He didn't know much about editing audio or creating the perfect sound. But he was determined. He spent hours learning. He read articles about podcasting, watched YouTube tutorials, and practiced his voice. Slowly, the technical side began to make sense. Mark's first podcast episode was about something he loved. Stories. He talked about the power of storytelling, how stories shape cultures, and how they bring people to 2000. The episode was simple but heartfelt. He shared personal anecdotes, quoted famous authors, and discussed why he thought stories were so important. He published the episode. And to his surprise, it got some attention. A few people left comments, saying they liked it and were excited for the next episode. Mark felt encouraged. He didn't have a huge following yet, but he knew that he was on the right track. Mark didn't stop there. Over the next few months, he released more episodes. He talked about everything that fascinated him. Technology, psychology, personal development, even history. Sometimes, he would bring guests onto the show, inviting them to share their expertise and experiences. Each episode was different, but they all had one thing in common: Mark's passion for the topic at hand. Soon, more listeners started tuning in. Social media helped spread the word. Mark's podcast became popular in a small but growing circle of listeners. He received messages from people all over the world, sharing how his episodes helped them think differently, inspired them to learn new things, and even helped them improve their English. Mark had always wanted to connect with people, and podcasting gave him the perfect platform. He was able to speak directly to his audience, share his ideas, and hear their feedback. It felt like a personal conversation, even though thousands of people were listening. One day, while discussing the concept of creativity, Mark received an email from a listener named Sarah. Sarah wrote, "I've been listening to your podcast for a few weeks now, and I love how you share your thoughts so clearly. I'm learning English, and your podcast has helped me improve my listening skills. It's much easier to understand than news broadcasts or formal language lessons. Thank you for making such a wonderful show." Mark was thrilled. This was exactly why he started podcasting: to help people. He replied to Sarah, thanking her for the kind words. That message motivated him even more. As his audience grew, Mark started to focus on making his podcast even better. He invested in better equipment, like a professional microphone and a sound mixer. He improved the audio quality and began to add music and sound effects to create a more immersive experience for his listeners. One of the challenges of podcasting was finding the right balance. Mark didn't want his episodes to be too long or too short. He wanted to keep his audience engaged without overwhelming them. After experimenting with different formats, he found that 20 to 30-minute episodes worked best. It was long enough to dive deep into a topic but short enough to hold listeners' attention. Another key to his success was consistency. Mark made sure to release episodes on a regular schedule. Whether it was every Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, his listeners knew when to expect new content. Consistency helped him build a loyal audience. People appreciated that they could count on his podcast to keep them informed, entertained, and motivated. As his podcast grew in popularity, Mark began receiving sponsorship offers from companies. Brands wanted to advertise their products on his show. At first, Mark was hesitant. He didn't want his podcast to feel like an advertisement. But he soon realized that sponsorships could help him improve the quality of his podcast and even pay for the equipment and software he needed. He worked hard to make sure that the sponsors he chose aligned with his values and interests. He would only promote products or services that he genuinely believed in, ensuring that his podcast remained authentic. Mark also started receiving invitations to speak at podcasting events and workshops. He was invited to share his experiences with others who were interested in starting their own podcasts. This was a dream come true for Mark. He had gone from a beginner with no experience to someone who was now sharing his knowledge with others. But despite all the success, Mark remained focused on his original goal: connecting with people and sharing ideas. He didn't get caught up in the numbers or the fame. For him, the true reward was hearing from listeners like Sarah. People whose lives were positively impacted by his podcast. As the years passed, Mark's podcast continued to grow. He reached people in different countries, helping them improve their English, learn new concepts, and feel more connected to the world. His episodes became a source of inspiration for those who were looking to expand their knowledge. And many listeners began to see Mark as a mentor of sorts. Mark also began to experiment with new ideas. He started producing mini-series on specific topics, such as mental health, self-improvement, and cultural diversity. These series allowed him to dive deeper into subjects that he felt were important, and they resonated with a wide audience. Eventually, Mark realized that his podcast was more than just a hobby. It was a platform for learning, growth, and connection. It was a place where ideas could be shared, and where voices could be heard. He had created something that helped people all over the world. Podcasting is a great way to practice your listening skills in English. The beauty of podcasts is that they offer a range of topics and speaking styles. You can find podcasts that match your interests. Whether it's business, history, science, or storytelling. By listening to podcasts regularly, you'll improve your vocabulary, pronunciation, and comprehension skills. At Tales Fluency, we encourage you to not only listen to stories, but also to explore the world of podcasts. They are an excellent tool for expanding your English skills and broadening your knowledge. Vocabulary highlights. Podcast. A series of audio episodes that you can listen to on the internet. Broadcasting. The act of transmitting a program or show for a large audience. Editing. Adjusting and improving audio or video content. Listener. Someone who listens to a podcast. Engage. To attract or hold attention. Sponsorship. Support from a company. Often for advertising purposes. Authentic. Genuine. True to its nature. Consistency. Regularity or reliability. Mentor. A trusted advisor or teacher. Platform. A medium or space for sharing ideas or content. If you enjoyed this story and want to improve your English with more interesting stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell so you won't miss future episodes. At Tales Fluency, we make learning English through stories easy and enjoyable. Whether you're listening to podcasts, reading stories, or practicing speaking, we're here to help you become fluent and confident in English. So, keep listening, keep learning, and keep staying with us. Goodbye.